And welcome back. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin. Here we are once again, the Horror Guys, with episode 42 coming to you live.
Recorded first of our 2019 Halloween specials.
It is Halloween month.
It is October.
Yeah, magical month.
Yeah.
Why just limit it to one day?
When you'd have a whole month of creepy movies.
Yeah.
Well, like we said before, we're going to go a little bit different route with our horror movies. We always do the grown-up, scariest movies we can find, usually. And this month, we're going to go with more family-friendly fare.
Mm-hmm.
Movies to get your kids and the little ones, get them hooked on horror movies.
Yeah.
I remember I used to watch horror movies when I was 7 and 8 years old. Not the really bad stuff, but like the Hammer movies on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and I would stay up like till midnight or 1 or 2 and watch those old movies, and that's how I got hooked.
And my folks had no qualms about taking me to pretty much
the
anything
stories
when
you
I was
have
a
told
kid.
me.
Pretty much anything when I was a kid, they would take me along. And
what's the most inappropriate thing they took you to that you can think of? You've told me a few.
Well, I don't know about horror movies, but I remember Straw Dogs when I was young. That's got a really brutal rape scene in it.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
Too brutal for me, maybe.
Yeah. What was that other one that came up recently? And I can't remember what it was, but I saw it again as an adult. I thought, wow, they took a kid to see this.
I don't remember anything terribly inappropriate, but there were lots of them.
But, I didn't grow up sick or twisted or anything, so I'm fine.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So anyway, if you want to get your little ones or your teenager ones or whatever you got, if you want to get them hooked on horror, we've got a few good starting points for you.
These are really intended for younger folks. Yeah.
Not terribly bad for grown-ups, but we'll talk about that later. But definitely kid appropriate. This time we've got 1990's The Witches, 85's Return to Oz, not one that's typically associated with horror, Coraline from 2009, and Goosebumps from 2015. There's a lot to talk about, so here we go. What's good at watching the movies?
Snacks.
Candy. We got any special Halloween candy?
We do. They have a special edition, and I'm going to hold this up carefully because I opened the package already.
Open them from the bottom. It is Brach's Pie Favorites Candy Corn, if you can't see that well.
Trying to cut down on the glare, yeah.
So they're candy corn, and what are they?
Apple pie and pumpkin pie flavored.
Well, you've got the normal orange, and white.
Those are the pumpkin pie flavor.
And the brown, yellow, and white.
And those are the apple pie flavor.
That very tastes apple pie-like, yes.
These are all mine now.
Well, wait a minute here.
Those are good.
Pumpkin pie. Yeah, those are good.
Those are good.
They both actually taste like what they're supposed to taste like.
They do.
One's very appley, one's very pumpkin-y.
Yeah. They got the spices right. Yeah. Those are good. Yeah. Yum.
We'll have a link in the show notes, affiliate link, of course, so we make we make some pennies if you buy some candy. So, yeah, pick those up if you like. They're very good. And, of course, you can get them from Amazon year-round. Where'd we get these? Rite Aid or somewhere?
You can't get these year-round.
Yeah, you can get them from Amazon year-round. There's always somebody that has them.
Oh, yeah, because people stock up and then resell them.
Yeah, we got these at the corner store, Rite Aid or something like that, but
they're everywhere.
Amazon's got them year-round.
Yeah. Or eBay. But eBay does too. People hoard them.
I've never bought food on eBay.
They do it though. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Whether you trust it.
There's a horror movie involved in that plot somewhere.
Yeah.
So speaking of horror movies,
what'd you see?
The Witches from 1990.
Yes.
Had you ever seen this one before?
I had not. No.
I had not.
No.
And generally, it's considered, a classic of this kind. Directed by Nicholas Roeg, written by Roald Dahl, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and James and the Giant Peach, and some other stuff.
And it had that feel to it. I
definitely did.
I mean, knowing after the fact, I probably wouldn't have guessed, up front. But after the fact,
it seems like something he would write.
Yeah, it
Stars
does.
Angelica Houston, Mai Zetterling, and Jason Fisher. 1 hour 31 minutes. Link to pick it up or watch it on the show notes. Did you like it?
I liked parts of it. I thought it was kind of slow and dull, but parts were very good. Special effects, the makeup was really good. Special effects were pretty good. The mice and rats were a combination of puppetry and real animals, and I thought those were done really effectively. So
it looked really good, but I agree with you. It was very kind of slow,
especially the beginning. There's a lot of exposition where Grandma and the kid are sitting and
you got to explain the rules.
Yeah, but that went on too long, and it kind of dragged a bit.
Before bedtime one evening, Grandma explains to Luke, real witches dress in ordinary clothes, look like ordinary people, and work ordinary jobs.
But it's a disguise.
But yes,
yeah.
The Grand High Witch is the most evil woman in all creation, and real witches hate children.
And they're bald. They all wear wigs.
Yes.
Yeah.
As we're told this, we see a flashback where a witch captures a little girl named Erica. They never found her, but they did find her image locked in a painting. The image in the painting aged and died over the years. Of course, this little girl was younger than the grandma originally, and yet she got old and died, and Grandma's not that old looking.
Probably aged faster in the painting.
Time flies when you're in a painting.
Yeah, she was hexed.
Well, the police come to the door and explain that Luke's parents had been killed in an accident, and Luke goes to England to live with Grandma. That all just gets kind of brushed over right there.
Mm-hmm.
As Luke plays in his treehouse, a witch walks up and offers him a snake and chocolate. Grandma approaches and the snake vanishes. Grandma gives Luke a pair of mice for his birthday, then she passes out from diabetes. The doctor then tells her to give up cigars.
It's not as choppy as it sounds with his description, but it sounds really choppy the way you're describing it. Yeah.
This thing happens, then this thing happens, and
there are smooth transitions between these things. Yeah,
you pass out from diabetes. It's not the cigars they blame it on.
Well, she was also put on a low sugar diet too.
All right,
because that came up later because her tea was sweetened because one of the witches played a wicked little trick that added sugar to her tea.
The two of them later go to a big hotel on the ocean. Miss Ernst, played by Morticia Adams, comes in and is greeted by Mr. Bean.
And she's always brilliant. I mean, she was very good. Angelica Houston.
She was fine. Yeah.
And Mr. Bean wasn't Mr. Bean. He was
Mr. Bean.
No, he wasn't Beanie.
He did talk.
He wasn't Beanie enough, and he talked.
He was Mr. Bean. You know how Mr. Bean is.
Well, he's always Mr. Bean a little bit because he's Rowan Atkinson. But,
Well, she has a whole group of fans that swarm her. Apparently, she's very popular for some reason.
By the most amazing coincidence, they go on holiday where there's a witch convention going on. Yeah.
She walks past a painting of a child standing in the woods, and the child in the woods vanishes.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bean gets on Luke's case about keeping his mice in his room, but Grandma threatens him with a health code violation if he doesn't STFU and go away. Mr. Bean looks prissy and stomps out. Luke and his mice are hiding out in the conference room when Mr. Bean leads Mrs. Ernst and a huge crowd of women in to have a meeting. The meeting begins. They all pull off their...
Yeah, and they make sure the doors are closed. Doors closed, or doors locked. Yes, okay, reveal yourselves. And they pull off their disguises and their wigs. And Angelica Houston, she has
a nose that likes out to
ear. Yeah, her disguise of,
How you fit that under a mask, I don't know.
It's magic, yeah. And her makeup is so impressive, and I saw that it took 8 hours to apply all that. Even her hands are all made up, and the fingers are like yay long with...
Which it really looks more like a rubber mask than makeup. I mean, it seems like it should not have taken that long.
It took a long time, yeah. Yeah, it's impressive.
Well,
I thought it was impressive.
Pull off their wigs and their false faces, and it turns out they're all witches. Yeah. It's a witches' convention. Ernst starts bitching about, why are there still children? Every single child in England shall be rubbed out.
Can I insert a funny anecdote? They didn't find enough women who were either bald or wanted to shave their heads, and they didn't want to bother with bald caps, and so many of them are in the background anyway and not really featured with close-ups and everything. A lot of the female witches were actually men in drag.
And if you know this, watching the crowd, it's really obvious.
And once you know that, you can look close and spot. Yeah.
If you're not watching for it, you wouldn't notice. But if you're looking, like most of them.
Yeah.
One of the other witches whines that this may be difficult, and Ernst shoots lasers out of her eyes, making her explode.
Yeah, that's quite a spell she casts. Yeah.
But it's hard. Boom!
Yeah, boom.
The plan is to buy every candy store in England and use them to kill all the children.
No, not kill them, turn them to mice.
Well, she offers them Formula 86, which is a time-delayed poison. It'll turn children into a mouse within 25 seconds.
But what about adults that eat the formula? One of the witches asks, and Angelica Houston says, "Well, that's just tough," or something to that effect.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we watch as another boy Luke met earlier turns into a mouse. Luke sees and overhears all this. The witches finally smell Luke and they chase him around. And it's all back and forth, in and out, and around, and up and down the hills, and it's all very... Should have been film
Slapstickish.
music. Yeah.
Slapstickish, yeah.
They eventually catch Luke and turn him into a mouse too. He runs away and meets up with Bruno, the other talking mouse boy. They manage to get back to Grandma's room and mouse talk to Grandma.
Yeah, they can
They
talk.
still speak English.
Yeah, they still speak English, despite being mice.
Grandma lowers him down to the next balcony where there is literally some cat and mouse action. It's easy to do when you're a mouse.
Yeah, and there's a cat.
Luke manages to steal a bottle of the formula and return it to Grandma. Grandma shows Bruno to his parents, and they react badly.
Poorly, yes, especially the mom. She gets pretty hysterical, over-the-top hysterical about it.
Ernst sends her assistant to her room without her dinner. I didn't catch why.
Just because she's mean.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Luke the mouse
Being
dumps
bossy.
the formula into the witch's dinner. Mr. Carson from Downton Abbey pulls a soft piece of veal out of the garbage can and feeds it to one of the restaurant patrons before the mouse crawls up his pants. I would have loved to have seen that in Downton Abbey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Afterwards, they cover the floor with a million mouse traps. The witches all start eating their soup, as does Bruno's father.
Yeah,
Grandma-
because he's kind of a jerk, and
I want
he
what they're
insists.
having.
Yes, I want the what is it? What was it? Watercress. Yes, watercress soup. Yes, I believe it was
Never had
cream of
watercress
watercress.
soup.
And
That just sounds nasty.
That's what the convention's being served, and he
Yeah.
insists. Well, he's a guest. He deserves that too. Yeah.
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 Grandma pours his soup out on the table and lets Bruno the mouse explain it to them. Meanwhile, it's Mousapalooza in the next room where the witches go ballistic.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all boom, bam, boom,
Yeah.
flying all over the place.
Yeah.
Mrs. Ernst vows her revenge as she too mouses out.
Yep. Rats.
Grandma-
Actually, she turns into an ugly rat, not a
She does,
not a cute
yes.
little mouse. Yeah.
Grandma catches her in a pitcher, and Mr. Bean cuts her in half with a butcher knife.
And there's a poof of smoke as and that's the end of the head witch.
They leave the hotel, and Mrs. Ernst's assistant waves goodbye as they drive off. Later, a package arrives for Luke from the hotel. It's all the money that the witches were going to use to buy candy stores. There's also an address book containing the name and address of every witch in America. They're going to go off and become witch hunters.
Witch hunters.
Granny and the Mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Ernst's assistant comes by the house that night and turns Luke back into a real boy, and even gives him his broken glasses and pet mice back. Maybe out of gratitude for killing her boss. I don't know. It didn't make any sense.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because she was
Sent to the office without her supper, so she didn't get
well,
turned into
and
a
part
mouse.
part of the reason she got sent to she was casting doubts upon the head witch's plan, and she was not quite as evil as
If every kid in the
Yeah.
country goes to a candy store, buys candy, and turns into a mouse within 25 seconds, it's not going to be hard to track down what happened.
Yeah, well, they don't care.
Okay. And this is why I don't like going to conventions. Like Mrs. Ernst, I too generally want to puke when the word children is spoken. She's like,
Yeah, they start literally, and the scent of children makes them nauseous too. Yeah.
I wasn't really sure which side to take on this movie. The mouse animation is really good, and the witch's makeup is good too. The film is really slow for the first 40 minutes.
Yeah, it does pick up. There's good slapstick and action when it finally does. Yeah.
Yeah. There are a few good effect scenes where Bruno turns into a mouse and when Mrs. Ernst has her mask halfway taken off.
Mm-hmm.
This is clearly a film precursor to something like Stuart Little, and the concept is similar. Unlike that film, this one is all done with Jim Henson puppets and real rats. Whereas I think Stuart Little was...
I think he was entirely a
computerized.
Puppet. Yeah, computerized thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not puppet, not physical puppet. I don't think so. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. It was not... It had good points and it had bad points, and it just felt kind of long.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, kind of long. Next up, Return to Oz, 1985.
Speaking of kind of long.
Now, we are both of the age where when we were little, they showed The Wizard of Oz on TV like twice a year, and that was always an event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of all the movies I can think of when I was little, that's the one that I probably saw the most often just because they reran it and made a big deal out of it every year.
There was a Frankenstein movie that they showed every Easter, for some reason around Easter time, every year when I was growing up. And I remember seeing that multiple times, too.
Easter Thanksgiving?
Huh? Easter.
Easter?
Around Easter time.
Easter for Frankenstein.
Yeah, I don't know what the connection was, but it always seemed like
You're
it
not
was
like thinking of
around
the Ten
Easter time.
Commandments. It's a
No,
different
no,
dead
it was
guy came back
definitely
to
a
life.
Frankenstein one.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, okay, no.
But that and The Wizard of Oz.
Did it have something to do with Easter?
No.
You got me on
not
this
at
one. I
all.
want to know more about this.
Not at all, yeah. Yeah. And it's that one where we watched that. It's got a really long trailer for it, and basically they show all the good parts in the trailer.
You're not narrowing it down.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so Wizard of Oz, one of the biggest movies of all time, maybe the biggest children's movie, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that was out in like 1939, I believe. And it was 40-some years later, they decided, hey, let's make a sequel.
Let's make a Return to Oz.
Return to Oz in 1985. And this is a Disney movie. It's got the Disney logo in the beginning.
Which is kind of weird, yeah.
Directed by Walter Murch, written by Walter Murch and Gil Dennis, stars Fairuza Balk, Nicole Williamson, and Jean Marsh, hour and 53 minutes. And I'll tell you, in 1985 or whatever, I had never seen this before.
No, I never had.
But I always read online, especially in the Reddit horror sections and things like that, people are always talking about how this thing haunted their nightmares when they were kids.
I can see why.
What's the scariest movie you ever saw when you were little? And this is often on top of the list.
Little ones
And
especially.
It's not really a horror movie,
but it's got some
kinda
really
is,
horrifying
too. Yeah,
images and horrifying moments. Yeah.
I could see where any little kid would be terrified by this.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you like it?
Overall, yeah. I liked it more than disliked it. It's no Wizard of Oz, though.
No, it's not.
No. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I put a poorly made kids film with some horrifying moments is one note that I made here.
Yeah, I think it's really kind of a really bad children's movie, but it's kind of a nice little intro to horror. If you want to scare your kids, this is a good one.
Yeah, this is one for them. Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing inappropriate in it, but the imagery is definitely there.
Yeah.
It could be a scary kids movie.
Yeah, monsters and headlessness and
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this one starts out, Dorothy has trouble. Takes up right after the original. Dorothy has trouble sleeping, and her uncle pulls out an advertisement for a doctor who can do electric healing.
Yeah, some time has passed.
6 months.
Dorothy is so obsessed by all the beauty and things that she encountered in Oz that she can't go back to the real world, basically.
It's been 6 months since the tornado, and she's not quite right in the head. All she talks about is people who cannot possibly exist, and her aunt thinks the kid is mental.
Mm-hmm.
Dorothy is out picking up eggs and finds a key with the letters O and Z in it. The delusional child thinks her imaginary friend sent her the key on a shooting star. Her aunt is not amused. The new house isn't finished, and winter is coming. Uncle Henry's broken leg from the tornado is long since healed, but now he's just a lazy alcoholic. They go to see Dr. Worley, who promises that he can use his machine to cure Dorothy with electroconvulsive therapy.
Which is another horrifying
That's a great thing for a kid's movie.
Another horrifying scene in the movie.
As it starts to storm outside, she plays with a little jack-o'-lantern on the desk in the room she's given. The creepy head nurse comes for Dorothy, and the little girl is terrified of the upcoming procedure. And any kid who knows what electroconvulsion therapy, she should be terrified.
Yeah.
They tie her down to the gurney, and Dr. Worley gets his machine ready. He reaches over to hit the switch, and they place the electrodes on her head, and the machine powers up, and he puts his finger on the switch, and the power goes out. The doctor has to go find the problem, so he leaves the room. There's moaning and wailing coming from the rest of the hospital. And this is a mental hospital with electroshock therapy, and it's fairly authentic moaning and wailing, so this right here is creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Another little girl bursts in and releases Dorothy, and the two of them run outside into the woods. They jump into a raging river to escape Nurse Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
She climbs into a floating box,
Instead of a
passes
tornado,
out.
it's a river this time. Yeah.
She climbs into a floating box, passes out, and is carried out to sea. The next morning, she wakes up on land. Bellina, her talking chicken, is with her.
Instead of Toto this time, it's a chicken that talks.
Talking chicken.
Yeah.
Dorothy explains that they're in the deadly desert, and they cannot touch the sand. It's like the floor is lava.
Uh-huh.
The rocks see her and report her presence to someone evil-sounding off-screen. She finds her old wrecked house, but there are no munchkins, and the yellow brick road has been destroyed.
Yeah, it's just rubble. Yellow brick rubble.
Yep. They quickly arrive in the Emerald City, but all the people have been turned to stone. Beware the Wheelers has a bit of graffiti. She finds the Tin Woodsman and Cowardly Lion, but they've been stoned as well.
Mm-hmm.
The Wheelers attack. They're tall men whose hands and feet are wheels.
And that was kind of a neat effect.
It's an interesting costume, but I'm not sure it's exactly terrifying.
And they slightly creepy. But
they laugh, and they're kind of maniac.
Kind of unsettling, yeah. Yeah, they have wheels for hands and feet, and so they're down on all fours when they scoot around.
Yeah, like living skates almost.
Yeah.
She hides from them and finds a clockwork man. She winds him up, and he says his name is Tick-Tock. They walk outside, and Tick-Tock beats up and tortures one of the Wheelers. You heard that right.
Mm-hmm.
They are told that the Gnome King stole all the emeralds and turned everyone to stone.
But not the Emerald City anymore.
The only person who knows where King Scarecrow is Princess Mombi. The Wheeler takes them to Mombi's tower. The woman they meet inside decides to change her head, and she has a room full of them. She wants to take Dorothy's head to add to her collection. And she's got a room of like 30 or 40 heads, each one inside of like a china cabinet. And she's got to collect the whole set.
Mm-hmm.
Dorothy gets locked in a room in the palace one of the palace storage rooms. She runs into Jack Pumpkinhead in there. He was built to scare Mombi, but she got angry and tore him up. Mombi used the powder of life to awaken him, and she keeps it in room 31, right next to her original head.
Her original head, yeah.
Jack's long arms reach through a window and
Oh, yes.
Jack's long arms reach through the open window, and they get out.
Uh-huh.
They reactivate Tick-Tock. Dorothy goes after the powder of life to bring back the statues of her friends. She finds it, but all the heads and the headless body wake up. They throw together a bunch of furniture and make a gump, a weird moose-headed creature that helps them escape. They fly toward the Gnome King's mountain with the Wheelers in pursuit, at least until the Wheelers hit the deadly desert.
Yeah,
it doesn't go well.
So it's basically a flying furniture with a moose head and wings. And
there's wings and a couch and a moose head and some other junk.
Uh-huh.
Meanwhile, Mombi talks to Ozma, a ghostly creature that appears to be a prisoner. And this is somehow important to the plot because we see Ozma later, but not a thing.
Yeah.
The gump starts to fall apart, and Jack loses his head. Everyone ends up landing safely in the snow, and the Gnome King introduces himself. The Gnome King claims that all the emeralds in Emerald City belonged to him in the first place, and he was just taking them back.
He wants all the gems.
He blames the Scarecrow and turned him into an ornament. They have to figure out which ornament is the Scarecrow, or risk becoming ornaments themselves. First the Gump, then Pumpkinhead, then Tick-Tock fail at the game. The Gnome King mentions that he now owns the ruby slippers. They were what allowed him to conquer Emerald City. And there's this big stone man with this beard and crown, and he's made of gray stone. He's wearing these little pink slippers.
He sticks his little dainty feet out, and he's got the ruby slippers on it. That was kind of funny.
Now it's Dorothy's turn to choose, and she enters a room full of treasures and trinkets. It turns out that Tick-Tock didn't really run out of power. He was faking it so he could show Dorothy what his guess was to give her a boost. She figures out the puzzle and releases the Scarecrow. Gnome King gets angry and puts Mombi in a cage. It's all her fault.
Yeah.
The rocks themselves come alive and roar and tear at them as they try to run outside. And this is kind of creepy too.
Kind of creepy.
All the rocks are just reaching out at them like hands in a horror house.
Another moment that would creep out children.
House.
Yeah.
The Gnome King eats the Gump alive. For real. And he's gone forever. Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
He starts to eat Pumpkinhead, but Bellina, who had set up a nest in Pumpkinhead's real head, lays an egg down his throat instead.
And there's how do you pronounce that? The Deus Ex Machina?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it poisons him. Turns out eggs are poisonous to gnomes.
And since he's the Gnome King,
So he crumples to a pile of
little
rocks. Well, they had been searching for the chicken all along. That's what the Wheelers were out for, is to find the chicken. They didn't care about the kid. They wanted the chicken.
Because they wanted to take any risk of eggs away.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense.
Dorothy grabs the ruby slippers and turns everything
the way they did it. It was like, it's the end of everything and they're doomed. And, oh, wait, here's the rescue. Like, okay.
Chicken egg.
Literally pulled that out of their butt.
Thanks, chicken.
Yeah.
Buck, buck. Dorothy grabs the ruby slippers and turns everything back the way it used to be. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
The Ozians, is that right? Ozians?
I believe so, yes.
The Ozians throw a parade, and everyone gets their reward. Dorothy is made the Queen of Oz, but she wants to go back home.
Mm-hmm.
She wishes she could be in both places at the same time, and her shoes glow.
But wait, you can.
Ozma,
sort of.
Ozma, the real Queen of Oz, shows up and sends Dorothy home. And the way this whole situation worked, it was like Ozma was a clone of Dorothy.
Kind of her alter ego.
But it was a different actress, a different character, different name. How was she when Ozma was a prisoner of Mombi before and Dorothy was just fine? They were two different characters before. It's like, oh, we got a little girl as queen? That's okay. We had this other little girl as queen. It's the same thing. No, didn't make sense.
You know how Guinan went into the rift in that Star Trek movie?
But she still looked like her.
And then she was still in the rift, too.
Yeah.
She came out and she was still in. That's my theory on that. Dorothy went in to Oz. She left, but her...
They kept her soul.
They kept a copy, kind of.
Okay, it's a dumb ending.
It's a little weak.
So she goes home. Uncle Henry and Toto find her on the bank of the river and take her home. Turns out the clinic was hit by lightning and everyone was saved but the doctor. The doctor was a psychologist. He was running his electricity. He's not a bad guy. He seemed to be generally trying to help.
Yeah.
I mean, electroconvulsive therapy is a terrifying thing, but I think they still use it.
They still use it. It's still a legit thing.
Yeah, the doctor was not evil, but he died.
Mm-hmm.
And the nurse, who we didn't see do anything wrong either, ends up getting carted away in the paddy wagon going to jail.
And that's unclear. Like, what was she doing wrong? Nothing.
She's a little creepy, but she didn't do anything.
It was a legit clinic.
Yeah. This was not a...
And it was, archaic in those days. Nowadays, when they do electroconvulsive therapy, they do it under under anesthesia.
Do they?
And yeah.
Okay.
And when they were doing it back then, quite often, most of the time, I guess, or I don't know what percentage, but they would just zap them.
Yeah.
Without any kind of numbing or anesthesia or anything.
Yeah, knowing that she's not crazy and going through this kind of therapy, that's kind of terrifying in itself, but they weren't doing anything wrong.
Yeah,
legally.
it was legal, and
it's a somewhat legitimate
they seemed
treatment.
To be well-intentioned, and that was kind of weird.
One died and the other went to jail.
Yeah.
We don't know why.
Yeah.
Because reasons.
Yeah.
Later on, the house is fully rebuilt, and now Dorothy can see Ozma in the reflection in the mirror. Everyone still thinks Dorothy is crazy, but that's okay now for some reason. The end.
She can be happy now.
And it's certainly not the classic that the original was.
But once again, it's all in her head. Or is it?
The Wheelers are definitely no flying monkeys. The claymation of the king is looking pretty old and dated at this point.
Yeah, I did.
Still, I've read dozens of accounts of children saying that this movie still haunts the memories of their childhood 30 years later. The mental hospital and shock therapy are creepy enough, especially if you're old enough to understand what's really going on. The talking rock faces are a bit disturbing. The headless woman in the room of 100 heads would definitely scare most kids.
Yeah, she's walking around carrying her head. She's headless and carrying one of the heads, and that was a kind of horrifying image.
I found the whole film kind of boring. But there are a lot of elements in this that would give kids nightmares, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't recommend it for adults, but if you have a kid that's looking for something scary to start with, this would be a good starting point. Yeah, it's a kids movie.
Yeah.
It's a little extreme for small kids.
On the scary side for small kids.
If you got 4 and 5-year-olds that like The Wizard of Oz, no,
probably
not this.
No.
A little older? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's got much more scariness than for little ones than the original.
The original had the flying monkeys, which I hear scared people.
There was some creepiness in there. And, scary.
I don't know anybody was really afraid of that witch, though. Characters here, a little more so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they cranked up the terror on this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, speaking of little kids, we have Coraline from 2009.
Or Caroline, as people kept calling her.
People kept calling her Caroline.
Much to her
yes.
annoyance. Yeah.
Coraline.
Her name is Coraline, not Caroline.
Directed by Henry Selick, written by Henry Selick and Neil Gaiman, stars Dakota Fanning, Terry Hatcher, John Hodgman, 1 hour, 40 minutes.
No, it's claymation, so stars as in voice.
Yeah, they're
But
voice
originally
actors.
the initial plans were for it to be a live action. And Dakota Fanning was cast. And then they said, now we're going to do claymation. And said, hey, you still want to do the voice? And she said, yeah. So.
I don't know. I can't picture this being as good live action.
No. Well, that's good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. What'd you think?
I kind of hated it. I didn't like it. I said bad things about it.
He did.
Yeah.
Now'd be a good time to say some more bad things about it.
Can I use expletives?
Probably not on the kids episode.
I thought it was very boring.
Okay. And I said I never saw a Tim Burton movie that I didn't like.
Well, it wasn't.
It wasn't a Tim Burton movie that I found out later.
And that's, I think, part of the reason that I disliked it. It seemed like a Tim Burton ripoff.
This was totally a Tim Burton ripoff.
It was
I
like,
could have sworn Tim Burton was involved with this. It looks like every other thing he's ever made.
But it's not good. It's like somebody said, boy, I really like that stuff that Tim Burton does. I'll do that too. But they didn't. There's that Tim Burton-y goodness and humor and music and, I don't know, life, and it just wasn't there in this.
All right.
Yeah.
That's fair on this one.
Yeah, but the claymation stuff, that same...
Oh, the quality was very good, yeah.
Yeah, that was...
If you like The Corpse Bride or Frankenweenie or Nightmare Before Christmas, this is the same kind of visual.
Yeah,
exactly the same kind of visuals.
Yeah.
Actually, some of the characters even resembled some of the ones out of Nightmare Before Christmas.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
We start out, mechanical fingers disassemble a doll. Then it gets a new skin and new parts and is reassembled into a girl doll and released into the world. And I'm thinking at this time, this is like doll heaven. It's reincarnation for dolls. No.
Nah.
Okay, we change scenes. A new family moves into the Pink Palace apartments. The girl goes out for a walk, but she gets frightened by a black cat. A kid in a scary mask nearly runs over her with a motorcycle. The boy shows her to the old well she's looking for. He's Wybie, and she's Coraline. His grandmother owns the apartments. Later, Wybie sends her a doll that looks just like her. It's the doll we saw a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
She explores the old house and carries her mini-me doll with her throughout. She finds an old door that has been wallpapered over. Inside, it's all bricked up. She goes to bed.
Yeah, nothing there.
Later that night, the little door opens and a magic mouse appears, who leads her through the magic door.
Into a magic tunnel.
Which is now a tunnel that leads right back to her room. On this side of the door, everyone has buttons for eyes.
They're all
On
dolls.
this side, her mother can cook and her father's sort of a musician. They're both really boring people in the real world.
Well, and they've got their own lives that they're very focused on. They very much ignore Coraline. Yeah.
The button-eyed parents pay total attention to her, and they're much more interesting people. Her button-eyed parents say they've been waiting for her. Her room is much nicer here, and everything is sort of magical. She goes to sleep and wakes up back in the real world, and the door is bricked up again.
Was it a dream or not?
She carries Mr. Babinski's mail upstairs to him. He's a blue-faced circus acrobat, Ian McShane. I expected him to do these stuff from Deadwood, but he didn't go there. He gives her a beat. A literal. His mice tell her not to go through the little door.
He's got trained
jumping
mice. Yeah. A mouse circus that he's working on training.
She then goes downstairs to meet her other new neighbors. These are two old actresses who have a bunch of stuffed dogs. They tell her fortune.
Stuffed dogs. As they've died over the years, they keep each dog.
They're old, and they've got a museum of dead dogs.
They've lived out a number of dogs. Outlived a number of dogs. And,
a large number of dogs.
Yeah.
They tell her fortune, and it's not good. Or maybe it's a giraffe. They're not sure. They're very weird old neighbors.
Yeah, they're reading their tea leaves, and the one has an interpretation, the other's looking at it upside down.
One looks like a creepy hand, and the other one looks like a giraffe.
Yeah.
Depending on which way they hold the cup.
Yeah.
Wybie tells her that way back, his grandma had a twin sister that just disappeared one day. He thinks maybe the house is haunted. That night, She follows the mice through the tunnel again. This time she goes outside the Button house into the garden. The garden looks like Tim Burton spends a lot of time here. On this side, YB can't talk. They watch Babinski's jumping mice put on a show. And if you didn't think Tim Burton was involved with this before, this garden, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Very weird, yeah.
Kind of wonder if he was involved with it and said, nope, take my name off.
Maybe.
Coraline has a bad day shopping with her mother in the real world and opens the little door in the afternoon. YB's cat follows her and they have a conversation. He implies that things are not as they seem. The crazy sisters in the basement also give her a show. She comes to the conclusion that the Button world is way better than her real world.
That's what they want her to think.
They say that she can stay there forever. The only catch is she needs to have her eyes replaced with buttons. She freaks out and decides never to go back. She goes to sleep, but doesn't go home. The cat explains that the other mother created all this just for Coraline. She wants something that just isn't her. The other mother eats bugs and has a house full of bugs. She changes shape into a tall, skeletal woman.
And that was the first transformation of this kind of animation done. I guess that was groundbreaking.
Morphing?
The morphing.
The morphing shape?
Yeah.
Shape changing?
Yeah, the morphing with the stop action.
And it's never been done?
Yeah, it never had. Yeah, it was something groundbreaking about the way they did it, and with the stop action. That's the first time that kind of scene's been done with that.
That surprises me.
Yeah.
She gets locked into a room with the ghosts of other missing children. The other mother is called the Beldam, who lures children in with the dolls that they sew on until they sew on the buttons. The Beldam ate up their lives. The ghosts want their eyes back. If Coraline can find them, their souls will be freed. The other YB leads her to the little door, and she comes back through the tunnel, but it all looks different now. Her mom and dad aren't there. The old ladies downstairs give her a ring that finds lost things. Why they had this, we don't know. That night, the cat leads her to the mirror, where she sees her parents locked inside the mirror. She finds a doll of her parents, which she then burns. Good thing it wasn't like a voodoo doll.
Yeah.
She has to go back to the other land for them. The other mother grabs her right away and swallows the key. Coraline makes a deal with her. If she can find her parents and the children's eyes, the other mother must let her go. If she can't find them, then she'll go ahead and sew the buttons on her eyes and give up. As time runs out, she goes on a quest to find the eyes. We see the Beldam in its final form, and she has the mechanical hands we saw in the beginning of the film. She wants to eat Coraline. Can she find the eyes and her parents in time? Maybe.
Don't know.
Well, it looks like a Tim Burton
Doesn't
movie.
that sound like a good description? Doesn't that sound like a good movie? The way he just read that? It's not.
What did you dislike about it so much?
Boy, just dull. I don't know. It didn't gel with me at all.
It did very well at the box office.
Maybe I'm a minority. I don't know. Yeah.
You kind of got a discrimination thing against animation, too.
Well, there's that. There is that, yeah.
I'd give it a 7.
3.
I liked it, ish.
3.
It looks like it. I liked it better when I thought Tim Burton was involved. It looks like a Tim Burton movie with everything that goes with that. It's colorful, creepy, and has a lot of weird creatures and machines. Except Tim Burton wasn't involved with this one, which just sort of makes it a knockoff. The other mother gets creepier and creepier as time passes, and her form at the end is definitely nightmare material for any kid. It was maybe a little longer than it could have been, but overall I liked this one maybe best of this week's films.
Not me.
Okay.
The next one, however.
Goosebumps, 2015.
This one I liked the best of all this week's movies.
Directed by Rob Letterman, written by Darren Lemke and Scott Alexander, stars Jack Black, Dylan Minnette, and Odeya Rush. Hour and 43 minutes. And I'll bet you this is the only horror movie we're ever going to talk about with Jack Black in it.
Has he been in other horror movies?
None that I can think of.
None that I can think of.
I'd have to look, but none that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
You like this one then?
I loved it. Yeah.
Got a number?
9. I give it a solid 9 out of 10.
I go 7 on this one
I was very entertained. And I've never
This
been a
was
fan
better
of the
than I expect.
Goosebumps. I've never seen the Goosebumps series, never read the Goosebumps books, just, hearing about them with them being a cultural phenomena. But and just going into it blind. So it's not a requirement that you know Goosebumps really, or be a fan of them even really. But I was so entertained by this.
I have never
Pleasantly
seen any
surprised.
of the TV series of Goosebumps. I used to run a bookstore, and we had the books in all the time, so I'm familiar with the titles, but I'd never read one either. A little after my time, a little after your time.
Yeah.
But it was better than I was expecting. I was expecting an anthology, 4 or 5 separate. It was not that. It was one big story.
Yeah. They couldn't decide what monster to include from the book, so they included all of them. I thought it was very clever how they did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got your favorite? He's in there.
Yeah.
A family moves into a new home in Madison, Delaware, and the mother is going to be the new vice principal. The son meets Hannah, the girl next door, and her weird father. She leads him into the woods after school, where there's a fully powered, abandoned carnival in the woods.
Yeah, which is kind of weird that it's still got power.
Why is there an abandoned carnival with rides and stuff that still have power and electricity and lights? Function and no security in the woods?
Yeah. Well, she says that they started building it and then ran out of funds, and so they just abandoned it. But it looks pretty done.
Yeah, it looks done and intact.
It's kind of overgrown with foliage and stuff. It's been a while. But yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
They climb up into the world's largest, darkest, and most dangerous-looking Ferris wheel to talk.
It lights up, but they don't turn it on.
Yeah, they have to climb.
Well, it's all bound up with vines and stuff, so they couldn't. Yeah. That wouldn't really run. But.
When they get home, Hannah's father tells Zach to stay away from his daughter, or something very bad will happen. Later, he hears Hannah and the father fighting, and there's a scream. He runs over to investigate, and he calls the police. The man explains everything away, and the police go home. And these are clearly the world's stupidest police officers.
They are.
They really are.
Yeah, they are pretty dumb as far as cops go. Yeah.
Later, he and his
movie cops, they're not. Yeah.
Yeah,
they're not bright.
No.
Yeah.
Later, he and his friend Champ break into the house's basement. Inside, they find a bunch of bear traps all over the floor. Then they find a bunch of Goosebumps manuscripts. Somebody asks, whatever happened to R.L. Stine?
Well,
the books are individually locked in little lock boxes. That's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
They open up a book and the words explode out, creating a whirlwind and an abominable snowman. It then knocks over the bookshelf and breaks through the wall and runs off. One other book opens up after the trio runs off after the snowman. Hannah knows how to suck the snowman back into the book, but she has to be really close to do it.
Yeah, and in the meantime,
doesn't want to get close.
The two boys don't know what's going on, but she does.
Yeah, she knows all about this.
And she's like, no time to explain. Just follow me, and let's get this thing back in the book. And they're like, "What? What do you mean in the book? What? How does this work?" And,
how's it going to fit in that book?
So then it becomes gradually clear. But
the monster chases them all over, but Hannah's father finds the book and sucks the monster back into it.
Yeah, he follows and. Yeah, and that was a really good, entertaining scene. I thought the snowman runs to a skating rink, and
I hadn't really caught that. Yeah, of course he would.
Yeah, because it's cold, and and that's a pretty fun action scene with slipping and sliding, and the snowman is going for the book. The snowman wants the book.
Because he knows what the book does,
if
and he doesn't want them to have it.
Yeah, turns out if the book is destroyed, they can't put him back in the book. Yeah. And then the snowman knows this, and so they're slipping and sliding, and that's fun. And R.L. Stine throws up just in time to suck him back in.
It turns out that the father is actually R.L. Stine, author of the Goosebumps books. He explains that his monster always seemed real to him, and then one day they become real.
Start becoming real, yeah.
When you open a book, you let the monster out.
Just his original books, the original manuscripts. Yeah. So he keeps them all locked up and keeps the monsters shut in.
So he knows what happens when these things start getting exposed, so he and Hannah get ready to leave town. They go back inside the house and find Slappy the talking dummy.
Slappy's revenge.
Slappy burns his book so he can't be recalled.
Mm-hmm.
He plans to open all the books. Suddenly, they're surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of lawn gnomes. Slappy has opened a bunch of books and burned them all. All over town, weird things start happening. Aliens with freeze guns freeze the police.
Yeah, he takes all the books.
He throws the books out the window as he drives down the street.
Starts scattering them around. Yeah, the gnome
chaos.
The gnome scene is fun with. Just a lot of fun scenes in this. Yeah.
Zach comes up with the idea of Stine writing a single story with all of his monsters in it, and then he can wrap them up all at once.
Mm-hmm. Put them all in the same book.
Can't write an ending for all these monsters. He can't even remember all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Stine, however, needs his own special typewriter to write that kind of a story. The typewriter is in a glass case in the high school, and there's a big dance going on right now. The invisible boy is in the car with them, and he causes trouble for a minute. Then a giant praying mantis is up next, followed by a werewolf. Aunt Lorraine runs over the werewolf, and she crushes on Stein immediately, and he reciprocates. She goes to the police station for help, but that doesn't work out so well since that's where Slappy is hiding out. The others head to the high school through the cemetery. What could go wrong?
Where the zombies are.
When the moonlight hits her, Hannah begins to fade away, and Zach realizes that she's a ghost, too.
I saw that coming.
Yeah, I kind of did, too.
She's one of R.L. Stein's creations.
That's why the police weren't going to get involved. They didn't see her. They didn't know she was real.
Well, and, yeah.
Suddenly, there are zombies everywhere. We don't get to deal with that ghost thing right now. They get to school and find the typewriter. Stein needs to find a place he can write, and he knows Slappy's going to come for him. All the students in the auditorium learn about the creatures, and they have to barricade themselves inside the school as Slappy releases the rest of the monsters outside. Stein decides to make a run for it, knowing the monsters will follow him and leave everyone else alone. He drives off in a school bus, and sure enough, all the monsters start pursuing him. It's a trap, and a bunch of the monsters get blown up.
That despite all the books having been burned, if he writes another book, they know that's the only way they could possibly ever be trapped again, is if he wrote another book, and so that's why they want him. They want him dead. And it also, they're indestructible. They can be blown up or crushed or various things, the monsters, but they reform.
They can't be killed.
Kind of like the Terminator, the liquid Terminator. From the Terminator movies.
They're magic. They're made out of words.
They just reform and reassemble. So this would be bad if they were not trapped again.
So the school bus turns out to be a trap, and a bunch of monsters get blown up and turned back into words because they got the explosives out of the school. Where did they have the explosives in the school?
There was they're hiding in the basement, and there's this locker that says "Warning: Explosives." And I can see, maybe the chemistry lab
for the football team
having a few dangerous chemicals for the chemistry lab and the chemistry. This was enough to make a big explosion. Literally blows the bus up into a huge fireball.
I'm sure every movie high school has a case or two of dynamite in the basement.
Right, yeah. But it's only temporary. They do get blown up, but then they reform.
It doesn't
of course.
last, yeah.
It slows them down because it was a diversion to get them all over there while they're taking care of business at the school.
The group drives to the abandoned carnival and hides in the funhouse. Stein continues writing the story between running and hiding. Slappy unleashes the blob that ate everyone. And the only place they can... Everything?
Yeah,
And the only place they can go is up into the Ferris wheel. The blob eats Stein, but Zach now has the typewriter. The problem is that if he puts all the monsters back in the books, Hannah will go with him too, since she knows now that she's a ghost too.
That's an all for one.
Turns out Hannah opens the book, and she, as well as all the monsters, fly inside it as if it was a black hole. Not long after, everyone returns to school. Stein and Lorraine are dating, and Stein is now suddenly an English teacher at the school. And they're calling the whole incident a mutant insect attack. It's always something.
Yeah.
What do they call it in Buffy? Neck rupture? The vampires attack?
Yeah.
There's always something like that.
Yeah. There's a logical explanation for it. Yeah.
Stein admits he wrote one more book, and this one features the return of Hannah, and this time she's real.
So she's immortal and indestructible. She'll be a teenager forever.
That didn't work so well in the interview with the vampire, did it?
Yeah. Next thing you know, she's going to become a megalomaniac and be Empress of Earth.
Immortal teenagers.
Yeah.
If you liked the ending of Cabin in the Woods, you may like this one. It's much more of an action movie than actual straight-up horror.
Yeah.
But with the collection of creatures involved, it's hard not to classify it in with horror movies.
Oh, there's zombies and werewolves. And,
yeah. All the real monsters.
Yeah, all the Goosebumps monsters.
Yeah. I'm not that familiar with the original books because they were a little after my time, but even I recognized a few of the creatures. Yeah, it was good. It was more entertaining than it was much better than I was expecting. Really.
I way enjoyed it. Yeah, I give it a big thumbs up.
So what's the best one this week of the four?
Oh, that one for sure. Goosebumps.
Goosebumps, followed by...
Witches,
followed by...
Return to Oz.
Followed by...
Coraline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably Goosebumps and Coraline are pretty neck and neck for me. Followed by The Witches, followed by Oz. I liked Oz the least.
Okay.
And that's our show this week.
Watch those for yourself if you want to or have your kids watch
It doesn't
them.
hurt to screen things before your kids watch them.
Yeah.
And you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
Of these 4 movies, the one I would say watch first would probably be Return to Oz if you got really little kids.
Yeah, you'd probably want to screen
Teenagers,
that
8, 9, 10, they're all fine. Less than 7 or 8, you may want to watch Oz first.
Yeah. See if it's okay.
The others, they're fine. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's our show. Thanks for joining us. Stop in during the week at horrorguys.com for news and horror updates, to comment or contact us. Now get ready, because next week, October 19th, we'll be discussing nothing but horror short films. Next week, we're going to be this week, we're going to be going to the Flint Horror Fight Fest here in Flint, Michigan.
Which is hours and hours of shorts. Yeah.
42 short films.
Mm-hmm.
I checked it out.
Yeah.
I counted the list.
It's a marathon of short films on a Saturday.
6 or 7 hours straight of nothing but shorts.
They have breaks.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, it'll be
Good fun. Yeah, we went to it last year and it was fun.
So we've gone every year that they've had it, and we're going to go this year.
Yeah.
Next week, we'll be talking about the best shorts we saw there. Maybe we'll go down the list and thumbs up, thumbs down all of them.
And hopefully we'll be able to refer places where you can see them too. A lot of these.
I looked up a few of them on YouTube, and they weren't there, so it may not be as many.
Last year's, a lot of those never appeared online. There was a couple that I tried to find to watch again, and
I think the directors and producers shop these around to contests and stuff. So they don't want them that's public.
And sometimes they never make it to online.
We'll see. We'll have a list, and we'll link to the ones we can.
We'll do our best we can.
Yeah. Then the week after that, we'll go back to the family-friendly fun horror, and we will have The Mad Monster Party from 1967. More claymation.
Mm-hmm.
Hocus Pocus from 93. That's the one with the 3 witches.
Mm-hmm.
Monster Squad. Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, and somebody else. Maybe the Mummy.
The Mummy.
From 1987. And Curse of the Were-Rabbit from 2005. A Wallace and Gromit movie.
I haven't seen any of those.
I have seen The Mad Monster Party. I've not seen the other 3. So I'm
Okay.
kind of looking forward to all of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's it for this week.
That's the show.
We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.